Going into it, I actually conflated rec and VHS in my head. I thought I was getting myself into another
Mm,
anthology sort of thing. And
okay.
there was one point where I had watched the first vignette of VHS during October, and then I
Yeah.
just didn't get back to it. So I still haven't finished any of the VHSs. And when I went into rec, I thought that that's what I was doing. And then it kept going, and then it got to zombies, and I realized, oh, I'm watching a totally different movie than what I was expecting. But
Happy accident.
what Rec is a little zombie movie that sticks you in a bottle and lets the zombies take loose. It's
Wonderful.
the American remake of this is called Quarantine, and that is what it is about. So,
All right, cool. Talk to me about what's new this week with movies.
so generally we record these on Friday. They generally get released on a Friday, and on Friday morning, I didn't know what I was going to watch. I talked to you about last week, and then Friday night the family gets together, we have a little dinner, and we watch a family movie like Coraline on a
Wonderful.
Friday night.
There we go.
My 2-year-old son was with us for the first half of it. And then we made the executive decision as responsible parents to, at about the halfway point, not show him any more of Coraline for fear of traumatic scarring and irreparable life, behavior.
Now, this is a Leica Studios movie, right?
Beauty. Yes. Yes, yes, yes.
It bothers me like it probably bothers you or everybody else when everyone's like, "Oh, Tim Burton. It must be Tim Burton." It's like, nah, I don't think so on this one.
My favorite all-time tweet about this was an article. As someone wrote an article and then they tweeted out it. That's what you do, social media
Yep.
marketing. But director of Nightmare Before Christmas mad at the fact that no one acknowledges him for Nightmare Before Christmas, and then someone quote tweets it and it's like, yeah, quote director of Nightmare Before Christmas unquote must be so furious at that, huh? Say his name, Henry Selick is the
Say
director
his name.
of this, and my son, big fan of Nightmare Before Christmas. I think I mentioned we've watched the first half of that like 14 times,
Oh my
but
God.
also even during the course of this October, we've watched the first half of Nightmare Before Christmas. He kind of digs the stop motion and the look of these things, and Coraline matches it and looks fantastic.
Yeah, I remember when it came out, it was kind of like a shock to the system of, oh, it's almost 2010 and we're doing this, but it looks great.
It does, and it matches. And so the story of Coraline, for those that are unfamiliar, is a little girl moves with her family to a new place. She's angsty and young and mad at her parents. It's the start of Inside Out, where she's
Yep.
she's mad at her parents for moving. And her life's not perfect, and 10-year-olds just want their life to be perfect, right? And the difference here is that Coraline crawls through a portal to a different world where all of a sudden her life is perfect, and all of the people in her life are eerily exactly the way that she would want them to be,
Yeah.
and she can live there forever if she'll only cover her eyes and not notice the things that are wrong with this world and put buttons over the eyes. And so we get a beautiful visual when we're in this other world with other mother and other father of all the characters there have buttons on their eyes. And then you get also the good, analogy of covering your eyes to not see the reality of your world.
Yeah, I mean, it's such like iconic imagery.
Oh yeah.
Even today, cosplayers or, Etsy store
Family
owners, which
Halloween
exist.
party, one of the cousins came as Coraline's mom and dad.
Yep.
Looks really cool. They were wearing like glasses that they put like pieces of paper that looked like buttons over their eyes that they could put the glasses on. So it looked very well done.
And this movie was nominated for Best Animated Feature in 2009, which is great. Great to have that on there. I was gonna say Henry Selick also directed James and the Giant Peach, another Tim Burton produced movie that everyone says, "Oh, that's Tim Burton."
Not quite.
Was he like Jordan Peele in his day?
Also,
Perhaps.
Selick, by the way, his movies look better than the actual Tim Burton directed animated movies that we can talk about, like Corpse Bride or Frankenweenie. And
Yeah.
if it's actually a Tim Burton animated movie, it's probably not as good as what Selick has been doing.
Well done, Henry Selick. Well done.
So that happened to be Friday after we chatted, and Coraline also just so happens to be one of my wife's just favorite movies in general, and it
Yeah.
matches the Halloween vibes, and so we definitely watched it. I have watched Coraline before during an October movie marathon, and so I was happy to revisit it. And then I sort of happened into a theme for this week's movies for these 7 days. Whereas starting on Saturday, I wanted to share with her one of my favorite movies, and it
Fun.
happens to be a foreign zombie movie. And then there was another movie that was on my list that was a movie from Spain. And then the next day, I just started to roll with it. And so for the next 6 days and seven, if you include today, which I'm leaving open ended a little bit, and we'll get to that, I got into international horror this week.
Oh, baby. Yeah, take us to the start of this list. I mean, when you had sent it over to me, I was like, these are either deep cuts or I've just never heard of them.
How
So
many
perfect.
did you even recognize of the six next movies?
I know the name Time Crimes, and I want to say maybe I've seen one of the posters for like audition, but
Oh yeah.
past that, I've never watched it, never heard it on someone's list.
And so this will be our international horror segment. I started, like I said, on Saturday with one of my favorite movies. This Whenever I get into October, I change my letterbox top four to just four horror movies as opposed to four other movies that I happen to like. And One Cut of the Dead earns its spot as one of my favorite movies, just in general of all time. I love the concept behind this. This is a Japanese zombie movie about making a zombie movie.
Meta, and yet also beautiful.
Meta out the wazoo. So, for those that are not familiar with One Cut of the Dead, I personally, the way I introduced it to my wife when I was talking about this movie that I love so much, I said, just hang with me for the first half hour, and then you'll get to see why it all comes together. But the first half hour can be a little rough, and if you don't know anything else about it, just hear that advice, pause the podcast, and go watch this movie available on AMC Plus or Shudder or a couple other places. Now, you've watched it. Come on back. This movie is so cool. So it starts off where it is all found footage ish, where it's a very handheld cam and low budget zombie movie. And the director puts himself into the movie, and you can tell there's like, you can see the cracks, you can see the seams in this low budget, poorly acted zombie movie. And it goes in one cut, one take. So it's
Wow.
all a oneer for the first half hour of this movie. And at sometimes it seems like we probably should have made a cut, right? Like
Yeah.
the camera falls down. There's all kinds of we have to pause and do a lot of filler. And the lady screams, and then she keeps screaming, and then she keeps screaming. And so what are we doing?
Keep screaming.
And then it pans up, and we show the title card, One Cut of the Dead, and
Wonderful.
then credits roll. And that's over a half hour of this movie. And then we go back a little bit and we introduce this cast of characters that are making this real in universe, low budget horror movie. We have the director is our main character, and he plays the director, and he is the director. And we find out why. And his thing is that he can make kind of cheap stuff. You know, it's not the best quality, but it'll do, is his tagline. And they come to him with this new idea for the zombie channel where we want to do this shtick of a one cut, just live on air zombie movie. And
Wow.
so we're in the auditions, we're in the, rehearsals a little bit. And then the day of, everything that can go wrong does go wrong. And so this movie is truly split into three thirds, where the first half hour, we watch the finished product, which makes rewatching so beautiful and so fun, because we start with the finished product. Then we get a half hour of just a normally shot movie where we're introduced to the characters and the background and how we got there. And then the last half hour is going over the first half hour again, but with a different angle and seeing the behind the scenes of everything that was going on during the course of that first half hour, and how things, the director originally wasn't supposed to play the director in the movie, but
Wonderful.
the guy that's supposed to play quote unquote the director, in the context of,
Mhm.
because it is a movie. Follow me with this, and I'm going to see if I can get it right. One Cut of the Dead that I watch is a movie about a TV shoot that is about a guy making a zombie movie. And then when we get to the credits at the very end, they give us bloopers that include of like fourth camera angle of, hey, here's the background of us shooting the background, because the last third is the kind of background of what was going on, of this shoot that includes a real camera, because the in-textual movie is about a guy making a movie. There are 4 layers deep to this, and it is hilarious all along the way. And for anyone that's also just like interested in zombie movies, zombies often where horror fans cut their teeth when it comes to just making monsters too.
Yep.
Just seeing the blood squick and the different, like cheap special effects that they're using in this fake movie. It's just catnip for people that like the art of making bad zombie movies.
$25,000 budget,
They
made
used
over
all of it.
$25 million. That's a pretty great, comparison there.
Honestly, renting the the fake camera that's used, the real camera, and then the two other cameras that are shooting things all at the same time, that's probably your whole budget. And then, pay your stars.
That's really wild. Yeah, I was just looking at the trivia while we're talking about it. Shot in 8 days. The first 37 minutes was actually shot in one take.
Exactly. Yes.
Took 2 days and 6 takes for the cast and crew to get the perfect one. Although they did say, the actress Harumi Shuhama said on the second try, they got it completely, other than the crew did something wrong with the camera and the take was completely unusable. So
Yeah.
they did 4 more to get it right. That's wild. Just for filmmakers too. Now I really got to watch this. I mean, the poster for this looks wild already.
Because you get the other movies that do the one-er shtick, right?
Yeah.
Birdman in 1917, and we can name a couple. But there's often that place where the camera like goes behind someone's head and you can tell that they
Yeah.
can seam two things together. This is a cheap, bad zombie movie, but at least they did do it all in one take.
It's legit. It's
Yeah.
legit. Yeah.
So it's just fun trivia for people that like movies. But the product on the screen for you is also genuinely good and hilarious at times, and just about a bunch of people trying to make the best of a bad situation, but also the conflict of art and commercial, like coming back and forth. And once they start rolling, it's live TV, and this director, kind of all of his frustrations for the whole process start to come out because he's also live and the director, he's playing the director too.
Yeah.
Gosh.
How did you first hear about this? Is this just like off a podcast or on a
Shudder.
list?
I was just scrolling around
Shudder.
Shudder. This came out in 2017. I think I watched it either in my 17 or 18 marathon because I had Shudder I just got the free month trial of Shudder before October started, and I would click random things. This may have also been a Joe Bob's Last Drive-In like feature
Okay.
where he did a little tee up because I was watching a little bit of those at the same time too. But
You just love, how you find things, how
but
they
now
become
I
favorites.
evangelize about it because I think it's amazing.
The good word continues to spread. Wonderful. Let's go to the 19th. Time Crimes.
Time Crimes, or Los Chronocrímenes. I practiced that a couple times and I still screwed it up before because it sounds so cool. Both Time Crimes and
Yep.
Los Chronocrímenes just sound cool.
3 minutes. Talk to us about why you like this one. First off, I guess let's start there. How did you find out about this movie and how did you first watch it?
Spanish language. This one I got recommended off of a podcast.
Okay.
And I didn't remember. So I have this running list just in my notes app of horror movies that I'll get to because in the other 11 months out of the year, if I hear anything, I'll just throw it in my horror movie recommendations list and then sometimes forget why I put it there. This one was in there with a star, which means generally speaking, I want to get it into the next year's marathon.
All right.
So I started up and halfway through, I remember, I was listening to a podcast that was talking about time travel movies. And it
Gotcha.
recommended a bunch in a row, and this is one of them. Time Crimes, the easiest way to explain it, is a Spanish slasher primer. This was released in 2007. The movie Primer was released in 2004, and it is it's just riffing on what Primer was doing. Very low budget, very just a realistic-ish, right, view of what time travel could be with just one simple set and one person. Like the mechanics of the time travel in Time Crimes is exactly Primer. You go into a thing and you pop out a certain amount of time before, but the machine had to have been turned on for you to pop out, and then we go.
Yeah.
But this movie happens to be about a guy who he's chasing himself, right? He is both our final girl and our slasher because he jumps into the time travel machine when he pops out in order to try to obscure his own face from himself, where he is going after himself. He wraps bandages around his face and you get a very classic slasher looking look with an oversized coat, bandages around the face, holding a pair of scissors, coming after the guy. So he looks big, intimidating slasher guy, but also he's running away from what he finds out is himself. And then he goes in a third time to try to, save something that went wrong the first couple times. And he's just having a really bad day. It's just this one guy that screws himself over.
Wild. I mean, you mentioned time crimes. I'm looking at the trivia here. The director, Vigolando, saw Primer in 2004 and freaked out. He was like, "Oh no, it's the same movie. It's too similar." But
Oh,
then a little bit later, he goes, "We're approaching it from different angles. I'm fine," which is cool. And it premiered in 2007 in
it
Austin.
did feel like it was extremely inspired by it. So to know that he was already working on it before, that's cool.
That's a good sign.
Maybe he and Primer guys both had watched something else and they were inspired equally at the same time.
We love the two inspirations leading to the same
Deep Impact
Prestige
Armageddon.
and Prestige and
Yeah.
Illusionist.
Uh-huh.
I was gonna say too, Tom Cruise was at one point attached to do an American remake. First off, I hate the American remakes in general.
Oh,
Second
we're going to
off,
talk about American
great that Tom
remakes.
Cruise. Oh,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. So and then he did Live Die Repeat, which
yeah.
is the American remake of the time loop movie,
Yep. Yep.
but with action instead. Yeah. Also, he keeps so just like a fun quirk about this movie. He refers to himself. His name's Hector, and he refers to himself as Hector 1, Hector 2, and Hector 3 to the scientist that he's talking to. But from the scientist's perspective, scientist ends up meeting Hector 3 first, and then Hector 2, and then Hector 1
Okay.
in order of how they pop out of the time machine. But because we're introduced to them, our timeline of the movie is Hector 1 first, and then he goes back in time to become Hector 2, and then he goes back in time again to become Hector 3. They keep it clear for us, but if I was Hector trying to explain it to the scientist, it wasn't helpful because he's reversed from the way that the scientist would have seen him.
Yeah. Okay, so a little confusing, but a short, tight movie, right? It says 92 minutes.
Oh yeah,
Gets its job
fantastic.
done.
Tight, limited cast, limited location, again, cheap budget, very effective, very good. And not especially scary, right? It is more time travel and sci-fi than it is horror, but the fact that they get the look and even the poster just looks like
Yeah.
he's a slasher, that's where they lean into it. Because Primer is just Primer. Primer I wouldn't call a scary movie at all, even though it's like, ethically and philosophically scary about the
Yeah.
idea of time travel, the way they approach it. This, they really do have like a slasher element, and he's, going after the guy himself.
And you watch this one on HBO Max or
I believe wherever it is available.
perfect HBO Max it is. Take us to the 20th. Where do you go after time travel?
So this one, you didn't say you recognized it, but Tristan, have you ever seen The Grudge?
See, I've only seen parts of The Grudge on TV. I've never finished the whole movie.
The American remake of it, though?
Yeah,
With Sarah
true,
Michelle Gellar?
Yep.
So, The Grudge is an American remake of Ju-on The Grudge from
Okay.
Japan. And
Wow.
that was around the same time as Ringu came out in Japan, and then we American remade it as The Ring. So, Ju-on The Grudge was a movie that came out in Japan. Before The Grudge came out, there was Ju-on The Curse. And before Ju-on The Curse came out, there were two short films all made by the same guy. So I watched Ju-on The Curse and The Curse 2, which came out the same year.
Wow.
And then they both predated The Grudge. And then when I finished those, then I went back and watched the two short films, because anyone who's seen the original Japanese The Grudge, Ju-on The Grudge, knows that it's extremely non-linear in its storytelling. It's just telling these little vignettes of things that happen around this, this house that holds a grudge, a curse, where, great evil happened in it at one time. And so that evil keeps happening over and over again. That's the concept. That's the horror of The Grudge. The Curse is doing the same thing. The original Ju-on The Curse was only about an hour long. And then The Curse 2, again, released in the same year, was also only about an hour. And the first half hour was just rehashing The Curse. So someone on YouTube just smashed them both together, took out the first half hour of The Curse 2, and just tagged it at the end of The Curse. And so I watched this mashup together of The Curse and The Curse 2.
The combo cut. Yep.
But also because all the little vignettes and all the little, anthology-ish kind of things around this house happen in such a nonlinear fashion, you can then just go and watch the two short films that predated them And they all come together in one giant story because it turns out the characters in these two short films are also referenced and characters within the curse. I think that the total package of 44444, like 10 fours in a row is the name of which SEO and
Yeah.
modern movie marketing would not let you title a film 44444444444.
Nope.
Um, that's a nightmare. But that's the name of one of the short films, and then the other is just the name of one of the characters. I think the total package of those two short films and The Curse and the Curse 2 is a
Yeah.
better total product than The Grudge, which was the commercial success that led to the American remake. I think these all
Wild.
come together so tightly and so well. And for me, I one of my just like fascinations is seeing interwoven stories, right?
Yeah.
If if the 1990s Oscar award winning movie Crash was better, it
Okay.
would be my
Yeah.
favorite movie of all time. Like I love the idea of a bunch of people's interlocking stories coming together at one and like seeing how that happens. Um,
Yeah.
and that's what a lot of really good horror anthologies are able to do. And I think the Jew on the Curse does extremely well, where you don't get the original bad thing that happened that laid this curse upon this house until far into that first half of the first movie. And then but you're kind of given little bits of the child that, so the linear story is that at one point in time in Japan, this man and his wife cheats on him, and so he goes on a murderous rampage and violently kills her and then
Ugh.
unleashes this curse upon the
Yeah.
house, and the child is a victim of it. And then, as time goes on, the child's school teacher comes and tries to see what's going on, but then as he enters into the house, the curse infects him, right, in a way. And then they eventually move out, and a new family comes in, but they can't escape the curse because the house has been cursed now with this great evil. Anyway, everything just interweaves and connects without it laying it out in front of you. One of the criticisms of the original Ju-on the Grudge is that it's just convoluted and hard to get your head around. But once you're into it, and once if you're taking notes on whose name is who, which is sometimes hard when they're Japanese names,
Yep.
that's hard for me personally as I watch foreign movies. But once you know who's who and who they're talking about, I think it's excellent.
Yeah. I was gonna say no judgment, but subs or dubs?
Subs.
Subs.
On
Subs all the
So
way.
some of these movies that I'm talking about during the course of this week just were dubbed in the original. That's actually, I think, going to be the next movie we talk about.
Okay.
But when there's an option, I don't need to hear American voiceover actors do it. I would rather just read it because I'm not getting anything more, right?
Yeah.
So I think we've talked about this before. Just my general, there's not a lot of foreign movies that I do have a little bit of a foreign movie bias against them because
Okay.
a big part of watching a movie is hearing the actor's delivery and the way that they communicate lines. Sound
Yeah.
is equal to the vision
Yeah.
in a movie. You have two parts, what you see and what you hear. And if I'm not getting the actor's delivery and the sound, I'm missing half the movie. And so that is hard to just read it. But if I can hear what they're saying in their own language, I can feel a little bit of their emotion more
Yeah.
so than just hearing an American voiceover artist.
Which, pulling up Netflix the other day and seeing the top whatever, when you let it sit for so long, it shows you trailers. And seeing some of the American voiceovers for some of these Korean K dramas and shows, you're like, people are phoning it in literally. This is wild.
Yup.
So it's nice to be able to get it in the original language when possible. So Ju-on the Curse 1 and 2. I have the link in our show notes for YouTube for the combo package. Any last notes on this one before we move on?
There's a reason why it got remade, right? There was a
Yeah.
big Japanese horror wave that came through at the late 90s and early 2000s. And so in order of these movies, I like this original Japanese, well, so including The Ring in it.
Yeah.
I like the American remake of The Ring just fine. So Ringu and Ring would be 1 and 2.
Okay.
And then Ju-on the Curse, I like a little bit more than Ju-on the Grudge, and then the American remake of The Grudge would be in last place.
Yeah. Ju-on the Curse. 2000, year 2000. What about the
Next up
next one?
is from Barcelona, Spain, Wreck, a great found footage zombie movie in Spanish.
And it's with brackets around the title, right?
Yeah, so you get brackets and then the icon for recording, which is a red dot, and then
Yeah.
rec. And there's been a lot of rec sequels as well. This is one of the longer lasting modern horror franchises that we've had. Going into it, I actually conflated rec and VHS in my head. I thought I was getting myself into another
Mm,
anthology sort of thing. And I'd
okay.
actually, there was one point where I had watched the first vignette of VHS during October, and then I
Yeah.
just didn't get back to it. So I still haven't finished any of the VHSs. And when I went into Rec, I thought that that's what I was doing. And then it kept going, and then it got to zombies, and I realized, oh, I'm watching a totally different movie than what I was expecting. But
Happy accident.
what Rec is a little zombie movie that sticks you in a bottle and lets the zombies take loose. That's
Wonderful.
the American remake of this is called Quarantine, and that is what it is about.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's found footage. The reason we get into the found footage stick in the first place is that a just lifestyle pretty lady reporter person and her cameraman are making a little, while you were sleeping special on firemen. And
Okay.
she's going to follow firemen around. And we do for like 10 or 15 minutes at the beginning of this short movie anyway. Nothing is happening, and we're just being introduced to, you know, the firemen in this fire station. But then
Yeah.
something does happen. They're called into action and they follow cameraman and the lady. And unfortunately, the action they got called into was this beautiful Gothic apartment building, like an old building in Barcelona that has been retrofitted into an apartment building with several stories. And that's, the location and the feel of this
Yep.
building become very important during the course of the movie. And so they get there, the police are on the scene, and we find out that there are zombies. And then eventually everyone starts to try to leave. They get quarantined in by the government. They can't leave. Eventually, the zombies start taking more and more of the residents of this apartment building until at the very end, our cameraman and lady are the last alive. And it wouldn't be
Wow.
found footage if they could make it out alive, too, because we had to find the footage somehow.
Which they said, I mean, again, the trivia, I love looking at how they do these things and just how interesting it is. It was filmed chronologically, shot on location, real location, no sets, and actors were never given the script in its entirety. So each one didn't know if they were actually going to make it out
That's
alive or
so
how much
cool.
further. And that's just fun, for the sake of filmmaking, you got to say it's a good action. Good
And
way to do it.
the location feels important, right? Again,
Yeah.
there's an American remake of it, but I haven't seen it, and I can't imagine it matching the look and feel of this real Spanish apartment building that's old. And the way the hallways go on and the very distinctive. There's one family on each floor essentially,
Mhm.
and we account for everyone when the police first get us down in the lobby area, and everyone's there except for the guy in the penthouse. He's not here. What's going on with that? Oh, he's never here. He's been missing for a while. That probably won't come up later.
Of course.
But it was just very well done, where it's a slow burn to let the zombies infect as we go. And also at the very end, when we go upstairs and we go to the penthouse, we turns out this was a mission from the Vatican
Oh
for this
boy.
man to bring home a possessed girl. But
Hmm.
then they're trying to isolate the isotope of possession in a scientific way. We find out through his tapes and his notes. And so, whether or not the zombie curse actually comes from us meddling with real possession, or if that was just the church trying to label just a zombie infectious outbreak as a possession, is
Yeah.
left to mystery. And I like that approach to zombies. There's 5 million zombie movies, and every single one, well, the good ones do try to do something different with the way that we get the zombies in the first place. And so
Yeah.
this checked that box as well. But then once we are in the penthouse and it's only our main girl and her cameraman left, it gets very legitimately scary. It's a slow burn for a while, and we get some jump scares as found footage is wont to do. But the last 10 minutes of this movie are phenomenal once we get there.
Wow. All right, rec. Recording with a little red dot. Not VHS, but rec.
That's right.
And we'll have that linked in the show notes. AMC Plus seems to have it as well as renting on VOD. 2007, so modern enough without being so inundated with the cell phone problem.
Exactly. And there are cell phones, but the government, when they put down the quarantine, I think blocked the cell phones. So there is
Yeah.
one point where someone with a flip phone says, "I don't have service," and that's the only lip service we get to the fact that technology is a problem in zombie movies a lot of time.
Tip the hat and move along.
Hmm.
Well, speaking of moving along, what is tomorrow's? What is the next day's? What is the next day's movie?
Tenebrae. This is
1982? Yeah.
Dario Argento from Italy. And this is, as I mentioned, this is originally in English, but Dario Argento is an Italian giallo filmmaker. And that is just the way we talked about The Beyond. I thought I was just checking my box of giallo during the course of this month by watching that earlier on. But then as I got into this week, I realized, okay, I'm going to make it a thing of watching some foreign language and some foreign international movies. And I would be missing out if I didn't go back to Dario Argento here. And so Tenebrae is a movie where the in-universe book Tenebrae is by this author who has written this horror book about some violent murders, and the book has inspired some real violent killings. We get almost more of a whodunit than a slasher, but we get some brilliant POV shots of the slasher here in the 80s, maybe a little bit inspired by Black Christmas and Halloween, but being done in Dario Argento's style. And there was a very interesting thing as I, looked around the internet as I was doing this. I looked at letterboxed reviews for some of Dario Argento's movies from my friends or people that I follow.
Yeah.
And a lot of them you could just kind of read as interchangeably for any of them. People are just like, wow, style on point. Yep, that could be a review of Deep Red or Suspiria or Tenebrae or
Yeah.
any of them. Blood has never looked as good as it does in, yep, Deep Red or Suspiria or Tenebrae. Any of the Dario Argento movies. That's kind of what we talk about movies.
Yeah.
That's a little bit of the flaw, I guess, in the letterboxed system and trying to make movies popular on that way. But this movie, but also they're telling the truth, man. Like the style is on point and the blood looks really good and the colors are fantastic. And yeah, this is dubbed. So the actors are speaking English, and this is the same problem I had with The Beyond, where they just shot it without sound and then
Yeah.
they VO dubbed it later on. So their mouths aren't moving. You can kind of read the lips that they're saying English words,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't really match the actual sound that's coming through. And so that is still a flaw, but it's a Dario Argento beautifully shot movie.
Did you like this more than The Beyond? Equal?
I
Less?
think I did. I think I prefer a slasher to a supernatural Gates of Hell, just
Okay.
like
Yeah.
fundamentally. But then also, this was a little more tight. The narrative was very well done. Like I said, it's about this author whose work has kind of inspired killings. And so then he kind of inserts himself into the police investigation. We wouldn't have Jessica Fletcher or Richard Castle on television if it wasn't for
Yeah.
this Tenebrae, or I mean, Misery comes later with Stephen King trying to insert himself, right? We get a little bit of, the horror creator reflecting on what it is that he's putting out there into the world. And so even Dario Argento, who's already made some stone cold classics to this point, kind of thinking about, I think, what his effect on society could be. But then also at the end, the guy that wrote the books is the killer. So spoiler, who done it? It
Little
was
confession.
Yeah, it was the guy that was promoting his own horror.
Yeah, the one piece of trivia I found about that I liked was that Dario said he got the idea after having a stalker that was particularly persistent. And you're like,
Sounds
okay,
like Stephen King and Misery. Like
sounds
that's
like Stephen King and Misery. Yep. Tenebrae, 1982. You know what? The Beyond 81, he was busy. You got to give him that. He was a busy director.
that was Lucio Fulci that
Oh,
did The
sorry, so
Beyond.
sorry.
So those are the Italian
The
filmmakers.
Italians were busy.
Yeah, they were bringing it to America, and this one is set in Rome, and so the locations are beautiful. The
Yeah.
Beyond, like I said, it was by an Italian filmmaker, but it was set in Louisiana, and yet
Yeah.
still everyone like they shot it without sound, and it seemed like it was dubbed later. But
Yep.
this it makes more sense because it was done in Italy.
Got it. What did you watch yesterday?
1999's Audition, back to J horror.
Audition.
And this is very unique. Audition, for an hour and a half almost of its runtime, is shot and scored and written like it's just a sort of dark romance, possibly like, Cruel Intentions ish, just
Yeah.
erotic thriller, maybe at the worst. And then it gets horrific in the last half hour. I have a pretty strong stomach for this kind of thing because I watch 31 horror movies in 31 days of varying horror. And I've just watched a lot of horror in my life. I was eating dinner when I was watching this movie, and I had to pause it and finish my food and then get back to it later on by the time I got to the end because it is something.
Wow, that bad, that dark. 1999,
Just
Japanese.
visceral at the end. The what they're doing on the screen is you can feel it. And I think a lot like Sinners, it would be more impactful if you didn't know that it was going to make that turn later, right? Again,
Mm,
and this is impossible. I don't know. This is a pipe dream for filmmakers to start a movie this way because you can't really market something and lie in the marketing and get a bunch of people in there and then twist it on them later to
yeah.
make it a horror. You have to say that it is going to be a horror, but once you do that, you're kneecapping yourself a little bit in the effect that you're going to have because truly for a lot of this runtime, it's just this guy looking for love and he's not going about it in the most honest way, right? He's sort of a bad guy and, the girl is dealing with some trauma. And so you get that there's more than meets the eye. But then when it makes that dark twist, if you don't know it's going to turn into horror, that would really punch you in the gut. But
Yeah.
you also can't not tell people. And again, I'm watching this during an October movie marathon, just like I did Sinners. It's not like I didn't know that the vampires were going to show up in Sinners. That's why I'm watching it in October. But if somehow I hadn't known, if somehow I really did think this was just like a Depression era, two black guys, both played by Michael B. Jordan, getting back on the racists, that's
Yep.
cool. Oh, shit, there's vampires? Like, you
Surprise.
can't really do that, though.
That's sad. I mean, it was screened at the Rotterdam Film Festival in 2000, and they said they had a record number of walkouts to that point. And one lady specifically,
There you go.
when the film ended, she sat through the whole thing. As soon as the Q&A started, she hissed, "You are sick," at the director, much to his amusement. So he at least laughed about it. And at a Swiss premiere, someone passed out and needed ER attention. So it's not for the faint of
I mean
heart.
that's a little dramatic, just like the
A
20-minute,
Swiss.
standing ovations that you get at TIFF or whatever. That
Yeah.
no one's really. Why are we standing up and applauding like that? No one's really passing out, but maybe they are. Whatever. But also, I had to pause and finish my dinner, so it.
That's it's a good sign when you were like, let me wait to finish this one up.
Uh huh.
Wow. All right.
But the ending is effective that way.
Yeah.
And if I hadn't known, like I knew something was coming. I didn't know. I didn't read those kind of reviews that told me it was going to be that crazy.
Hmm.
But and if I had, I probably would have started it after dark anyway when I wasn't going to be eating anything. But also it still crept up on me and surprised me. I thought some horror was coming, but I didn't think it was going to be that.
Wow. Well, a lot of Americans like it. I saw Rob Zombie said he found it to be the most creepy and unsettling of any horror movie he's seen. Quentin Tarantino calls it his masterpiece from 92 to 2009.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you're in good company with people who enjoy this movie.
Shot just extremely well. The way they create the atmosphere of mostly safe, a couple getting to know each other, but there's something going on underneath. Also, it does a really nifty play on the old Hitchcock adage of putting a bomb under the table where the audience knows about it, but the two people don't.
Hmm.
Where, but we know that it's a bomb, right?
Yeah.
This movie, there is a sack in this lady's apartment, right? So the movie's plot is this older guy, his wife dies at the very beginning, and so he's alone for a while. His son convinces him to get it back out into the dating pool. He schemes with his television producer friend to like tell a bunch of women that there's going to be this new hot show. They audition the women under the pretense that they're going to be a film star, but really he's auditioning them to date them. And so the one that
Okay.
he picks happens to be this person that he really shouldn't have picked. And there's red flags along the way that he should not be pursuing this relationship, but also he went about it in the most skeevy way humanly possible in the first place. Everyone's it wrong. But in this girl's apartment, we see in multiple scenes there's this sack, looks like a body bag. Spoiler.
Okay.
There could be a body inside, but we
Perhaps.
never see what's inside it. But we know about the bag and we know that it's a bag, but we know she knows what's inside of it. So it's almost the exact opposite building of drama of putting a bomb under the table where the characters don't know. We know that she knows exactly what's in that bag, and we know it is a bag, and we know it is going to be important. It's Chekhov's
Bag.
freaking horror element here.
Yeah.
But it waits so long to tell us what's in there, and when it does, it's effective horror.
Wow. Like you said, masterfully done. Yeah, you got to
It
give
is.
it its props. Audition, 1999. on Screenbox and rentable on VOD.
And Tubi. I watched it on Tubi.
And on Tubi. Okay, we'll make sure to link
Because
Tubi
Tubi,
there.
honestly, Tubi might have literally everything I want. Tubi's, if you can sit through anywhere from 3 to 7 ad breaks in a movie, depending on how popular it is,
Yeah,
Tubi probably just has whatever movie you're looking for right now.
we'll make sure to link it on Tubi. Audition. Do you know what you're watching for today?
Tristan, I want to put this up to you. I
Oh,
want to finish 7 full days of watching international horror. And so, since I started today's podcast talking about Coraline, that was my wife's personal pick,
yeah.
I only talked about 6 movies. And so, for my seventh, I want to present you with a couple ideas, see if you've
Oof.
heard of or seen any of these,
All
and then
right.
to just pick the movie that I'm going to watch today on Friday.
Let's hear it.
Contestant number 1, Night Eats the World is a French zombie movie.
Okay.
Contestant number 2, Wake in Fright, is about the horrors of the Australian outback,
Wonderful.
1970s. The Host by Bong Joon-ho is Korean.
Kind of a classic, yeah.
Dead Snow is the Norwegian Nazi zombies movie.
I mean,
I have
okay.
watched this before in an October movie marathon, but it's been a long time. And I watched it with a group of friends, and I didn't know it was going to be an international foreign language movie when I suggested it to my friends, and it didn't play well. And so I kind of want to give this a revisit. The other ones
Okay.
I have not seen. This is the only one I have seen of these, and including The Host. I feel like that's a blind spot. So
I mean, yeah, I'm really wanting to hear your take on the host. With a backup of if something happens, the Norwegian red
Nazi
snow, dead
zombies.
snow,
It's Dead Snow.
dead
Could be,
snow.
you can read it as Red Snow. That's what it's about. Yeah.
That would be my take. Because I feel
Okay.
like the host, especially, when I first saw the poster for it, I was like, this is like a joke movie, right? It looks like a sci-fi TV
Yeah.
poster, but it's Bong Joon-ho. So,
So have you seen it?
I haven't seen it. I
Okay.
know a lot of people have
Okay.
talked about it. Was this remade into an American television show or is it totally separate?
Yes, I believe so. I did a little bit
Okay.
of Wikipedia research on all of these, and most of them do have. Most of the good ones have American remakes. A couple other ideas I had was Let the Right One In from Sweden. That obviously
Hmm.
became that was Matt Reeves that made the American remake. Let
Wow.
Me In, and then Speak No Evil was from Denmark, and that was remade into a James McAvoy Speak No Evil
Yep.
American remake. But if you would like me to watch The Host, I will watch The Host
I
today.
think you should watch The Host. You've done
Love it.
some zombies. This is a monster, right?
Yep.
And it's a big
Big scary
CGI
monster.
monster. I just remember in looking in like inspiration for this animated show I'm working on, we just started like pouring through monster movies and whatever else. And this one I think looks kind of interesting and different.
Right
So
on.
The Host it is.
All right. That will be my Friday movie that we will start the podcast with this time next week. And the way we will end the podcast next week is going to be Psycho because
Of course.
Tristan, next week we're recording on October 31st, and that's
Oh,
always my Halloween
baby.
movie. We've made it. This is almost the end.
Wow. We're almost there. Well, I'm going to some spooky stuff this weekend. What are you doing beyond movies this weekend?
Well, I've carved my pumpkins.
Yeah.
I've seen a couple pumpkin patches. I think I need a proper horror, like a haunted house. There's a few
Okay.
here in Salt Lake that lean that way. And maybe a haunted, hayride, maybe a haunted corn maze, maybe something else.
A haunted little something else. Well, I'm going up to Burbank, which is where all the old animation studios were, just a little bit in the valley from
Heck
LA.
yeah.
But it's also where all the below the line workers are. So you have your VFX guys, your prop
A
makers, your producers. And so there's just a whole bunch of horror themed houses and like little areas and cul-de-sacs where it's all just kind of spooky. So we're going up there and just kind of making a little crawl of it. House to
I
house
love
to
that.
house, spooky coffee shop to spooky bake shop. And that's what we're doing this weekend.
Yeah, at some point I'll probably just walk around some of the ritzy neighborhoods and see what their Halloween lights and giant inflatable Oogie Boogies and Mickey Mouse with fangs look like too for the 2-year-old in my life.
Perfectly, perfectly placed for the 2 year
Hmm.
old. Well, let's wrap it up there, and we'll have once again all the movies we've talked about thus far, October 1st through 23rd, in the show notes. And keep watching good movies and TV, especially horror movies, before next week.